And we welcome Jump, who is a content creator and commentator for Apex Legends. Of course, the big announcement, Jump, is that Apex Legends competitive. A lot to break down in 2020, $3 million prize pool, a lot of excitement around it, a lot of cautious optimism around it as well. The first thing I want to ask, though, you having been a caster for many of the previous Apex Legends events, what can you tell us regarding broadcast talent for the competitive series?
I think that when you take a look at Apex Legends and what's being held for 2020 of all the different formats, all the different events, I think, one, you're going to see a huge expansion, actually, in the broadcast talent. With more events, you're going to need more people to cover it. But as far as involvement of people like myself, Glitter Explosion, Dreadnought, Bravo, some of the people from Poland and abroad, hopefully, we want to still be involved. There's nothing locked down with us just yet, but considering how much is available for Apex Legends in 2020 and the fact that we've been there since the beginning, we're definitely going to want to make sure that we're involved as much as possible.
Okay, well, we look forward to an announcement in the near future regarding that. Speaking of announcements, let's break down the recent tweets from Snipedown, who's not too happy with some recent news that came to surface, or at least a clarification, we should say. Let me read the tweets and get your thoughts on it, Bill. He said, "The things I've dealt with trying to compete in Apex are such a joke at this point. Second at X Games, teammates respectfully go back to their third, like they stated originally. Go to Poland for their PC to malfunction one game before making it to finals to get knocked out. Now I'm region locked from unclear rules 3 weeks away from qualifiers after having a set team, driving 40 hours across the country with my entire setup, with days planned out perfectly to scrim EU times, and now it's all chalked. LMAO, I'm actually beyond frustrated at this point." Your thoughts?
Well, that, of course, stems from the original tweet coming from Shaheen from the competitive division over at EA and Respawn, stating that all of the players for each region that they're playing need to be playing within their region, so their IPs have to be there. So Dolphin, the third player of Snipedown and BCJ, is from Europe, and he would have had to then fly to NA to make sure that that happens. So huge frustration for them, considering how good of a player Dolphin is and how enjoyable it's been to watch in the scrims with Eric and BCJ alongside him. I find it frustrating for anybody that finds themselves of a standard that they set, the money, the time, the resources that Snipedown has consistently put in throughout his career, not just in Apex Legends. It's definitely going to be a struggle for him. He found himself with really good teammates at the X Games and then found himself in a very unfortunate situation over in Poland. And now, with less than 2 weeks out of a qualifier and having to find a way to find a third, I don't know what's going to happen. I love Eric to death, but it's definitely going to be a difficult one for him, and it sucks to see something unfortunate happen to a player that good and to a human that awesome.
This is some news that I would say comes at a time where Apex Legends kind of feels like it's a little bit in a lull before the new season starts and all these events start to come back to back to back. I want to talk a little bit about that lull, though. Right, we've seen a lot of battle royales have a lot of popularity, Apex Legends among them, when they first release, and it's been a while. X Games, we've had events since X Games, but it's been a while since X Games and some of the others that were these major events in the Apex Legends calendar. I mean, how do you feel moving forward right now into 2020, and does it feel like there's been a little bit too much downtime in between the last big tournaments and now?
Something that I've respected Respawn about since the game first came out is they've never really finished a truly unfinished product. There is obviously complaints in the community about certain aspects of the game. Every community for every game, of course, has their quarrels with the developers and what they want to do. But EA and Respawn have done a good job with Apex in making sure that the features that they want to create, the experiences that they want to have, are ready to go, ready to ship at launch. This was kind of evident from the very beginning, back when the game launched in February of last year. And despite the fact that we had the Poland Major for the preseason invitational and then basically nothing until January 25th when we have the online qualifiers, the lull has been frustrating for a lot of players, and it's definitely been frustrating for a lot of us that, we want more events, we want more broadcasts, and we want more opportunities to kind of showcase a game that we love. But taking a look at the format and how many different events are actually existing on the 2020 calendar for Apex Legends, I think that lull to be seen negative from the community because they don't know too much about it. Once the developers, as well as EA, decide to actually launch all of the things that they have cooking up under the basket, I do think it is going to be something that will make people forget about that lull and actually look and see how good of a competitive experience Apex really is.
Yeah, I think that Apex, frankly, played a lot of the different Battle Royale titles, and PUBG and Apex definitely among them. I think Apex may be actually, from a competitive perspective, the best Battle Royale out there. I enjoy playing it. I think that as someone who's played a lot of shooter titles over the years, everything from Call of Duty to Counter-Strike, in very copious amounts of hours, I think it's a great experience. I think the biggest thing, though, is just trying to make players stick to any Battle Royale title and make them continually interested. Fortnite's the only one that's figured that out, and even then, it had a peak and it's gone progressively down, but it was so high that it's even down.
So, Jump, let's unpack that, because a lot of people who may not be strictly Apex enthusiasts might look at this news, particularly the prize pool, and say, well, $3 million, that's what Booga won for winning first, right? So, like, where can Apex Legends win in competitive in 2020 when there's so much competition, particularly what inevitably will be Fortnite's announcements in 2020 coming up?
There's two names that you need to know to answer that question. It's Eric Hewitt and John Nelson. John Nelson is the head of the competitive gaming division over at EA. Eric Hewitt, Gosiyame, for any of you Halo fans out there, sits right below him. They're OG Halo guys. They come from the community. They are for the community. And despite having only the $3 million, I guess you could say, for the course of 2020, it's all about making sure that the grassroots community has an opportunity to shine. There's essentially 3 different routes to get to the Apex Legends Global Series Championship, as they call it at the end. There's the online qualifiers that feed into the premier events. There's kind of challenger open registration events that are going to be online as well. And then, of course, there's the different major events that happen throughout the year. The first major being announced March 13th to 15th at the Esports Arlington Stadium over there. Now, considering the fact that a game is only good as the amount of players that play it and how strong that community is, you take a look like a scene like Halo that has built themselves from the ground up because of giving that opportunity to anybody and everybody that wanted a chance to succeed, having that chance to do so. The online qualifier system and the fact that anyone can sign up and play for something like the Global Series for Apex Legends is going to be the reason why I think that the game succeeds. If you can build up that user base, if you can make sure that people believe that they have a chance to become a pro from nothing, that growth and that ability to grind, I think, builds up a strength in a community that a lot of people really undervalue in something as artificial as let's just throw a lot of money at it, and because there's a big prize pool, that's what's going to make sure that you keep people around.
And that's an EA specialty, right? Like, anybody can be a winner. We see that in other EA leagues as well. And to be fair, also the Fortnite World Cup was like that as well. Let me ask you this. I mean, in terms of, I find it interesting that we hear all of these announcements, but then you also hear announcements like Diza retiring from competitive Apex Legends and going to be a streamer. Perhaps his quality of life has gotten better. And really, what I like to call him is the first Apex Legends legend, right? He was the very first one to have any sort of notoriety or fame as a result of his play in this game specifically. So when you look back on Diza's tenure, particularly before all of these announcements, what comes to mind?
I mean, I will always shamelessly pat myself on the back when we had the first Twitch Rivals 8 days after the game launched. That was the day after King Richard picked him up for his team, and NRG actually ended up signing him for the teams. I said, watch out for this guy. This guy's going to be awesome. And then he went through and demolished everybody on that Twitch Rivals tournament. Diza, I've known Kobe since the very beginning. He is a fantastic human. He's a hard grinder. But I think when you take a look at what he has done and what his future looks like, I actually fully support his decision to move over to a content creator and move into more of that streamer role. When you take an analytical perspective at NRG with himself, Ace, as well as more, Diza was in some ways a piece of that wink link from the competitive aspect. Mechanically, he was a fantastic player, but the macro shot calls and the decision making of the team ended up having to fall on more as well as Ace. And when you put someone like Ace, who is purely a mechanical god and is going to outplay you like crazy, you need to do what you do to a lot of players in something like League of Legends, where you don't put your shot calling opportunities on something like that AD carry. Your AD carry needs to sit back and do what they do best, which is kill people. that's what Ace does, that's what Ace needs to do. So Dizzy now being off that team and them having signed Frex to NRG now has that IGL perspective and improves NRG as a whole. So not only does it, I think, help NRG as a competitive team, but I think it just alleviates a lot of stress on Dizzy, and he can just have fun playing video games, which I think is pretty cool.
Let's keep up with that, actually. Let's end on this jump. I know that you are very fond of rankings, and you do them yourself. A lot of people would point to TSM, obviously, because they had so much success in 2019. But are they at the top of your list?
TSM, until someone knocks them off, is going to be number one. I'm a firm believer that results decide, how good or bad you are. And there have been everything that TSM has touched, they've walked away with the first place trophy for that. So they're going to be number one in my book, but I do say that with more international competition and more kind of LAN environments, I would not put out the Europeans. You take a look at Luminosity Gaming that took home first place at the GLL major that they just had not too long ago. Team 789, if you remember, from Poland, they're an extremely terrifying squad. And then you've got also Virtus Pro, a team that has showed up in many different instances, both in Poland as well as GLL. And I think those right there are probably going to be my top three: TSM, LG, and Virtus Pro in that order.